Who is a leader? A leader is a person who actually encourage the employee to do something which he or she had never thought of doing. So something which is unimaginable, the employee, the individual have never thought that I can do even this. A person who is a leader, that person, I actually identify the potential and encourage or draw a route map or pathway for that employee so that he or she can reach there. So again, that's one great leadership trait or quality we can say. One more thing is, if our team or the organization is led by a leader, then automatically you will observe or you will agree that the employee engagement will be high. Automatically the productivity will be high. We will have a great working environment, and because of all these things, attrition will definitely will come down. That will be low. Now, again, there is a debate. Are the leaders born, or they can be created or developed or nurtured? Well, uh, various different studies and I mean, if you read various different books, journals, you'll found that yes, there are definitely some born leaders who, I mean, who are born with certain leadership qualities, but they are very few. But in reality, at least may not be up to the level who are born leader kind of level, but at least to a certain extent, the leaders can be developed. That is, people, I mean, if I have interest, if I have inclination, if I have ability, in that case I can get trained, I can practice certain traits or certain skills, and then I can reach to a position where at least I will be respected, I will be loved, and also I will be able to achieve whatever I am supposed to achieve. It's not that only I am getting respect, I am getting love, but whatever I am supposed to or my deliverables are being um, hampered. That should not, definitely should not happen. Now, if we move to a little deeper, let's see what all qualities a leader must demonstrate. Now, again, I mean, these all these things are kind of a. I personally have found these things. I am a strong believer of these facts, and also based on certain research and certain uh, training which I have attended, I have heard to many different people in YouTube, their audiobooks and all these things, various different seminars, workshops. And what I found is, if I want to be a leader, I mean, not a born leader, but I can say nurtured leader, or um, accumulated leadership skill kind of thing. In that case, I must be an active listener. Now, what do we mean by active listener? Active listener means that person will pay attention to the speaker when someone is speaking and maintain the eye contact. He or she must not interrupt the speaker in between. Never ever do multitasking while other person is speaking. I mean, I don't know whether you have observed or not. I have observed in many cases, many people have this habit. When someone has come to speak to me, I will be working on my laptop or busy with my phone or something. And if the person, obviously the person will feel that I am busy, I am not listening. So obviously when that person stops, I always, I mean, I means that person always say, no, I'm listening. I'm listening. Go on, carry on. Now that creates a very bad impression. I mean, uh, if you ask me, I personally had this experience with my first supervisor in Accenture itself. So if you ask me, I used to hate to speak to this person. I used to hate to bring up anything to this person, because somehow at the back of mind, I always have a feeling this fellow doesn't listen. Now, you might be very good, excellent in multitasking, but still, we should definitely should avoid doing the multitasking thing. Next is, again, while uh, someone is speaking, show empathy. Do not be judgmental. Never be judgmental. I mean, don't take the judgmental call that yes, this is going to be like this. Never do that. Uh, And if the person is speaking for quite some time, then what happens is we sometimes lose the track, because our mind is something which we might not be able to remember all these things which have been spoken in for a length. In those cases, paraphrasing is a very, very, very good technique, not only for myself as a listener. I get reconfirmed that whether I have really listened properly or have got into my mind or not. Secondly, it gives enough confidence for the speaker that yes, this person is listening. I mean, I am not speaking to a wall, something like that. Uh, all these statements or all these theories, I'm sure you will agree that, oh, wow, fantastic. Now, how can we be an active listener? What, again, a very few things. There is a active listening is a subject altogether. I mean, you will find a lot of courses on active listening also. Uh, how to become active listener? The first thing what I feel is understand the level of listening. There are multiple level of listening, like listening in spurts, hearing but not listening, empathetic listening, and so on and so forth. So we need to understand various different levels of listening and find out where do I stand as a listener. Then second one is understand the personality factor and the influence of childhood habits. One interesting thing which I have observed is our listening pattern greatly depends on our childhood habits. Whatever we have seen, observed in the childhood, the way we had been treated during our childhood, our listening pattern greatly depends on that. So, I mean, once we understand that part, in that case, for me, for us as a listener, it becomes much more easier to manage or do it in a better way. I mean, become a better listener. Next is understand four different okay attitudes. There are four different okay attitudes are there. I am okay, you are okay. I am okay, you are not okay. I am not okay, you are okay. I am not okay, you are not okay. Like that. So we need to understand those okay attitude and try to move to a better okay attitude pattern, I would say. Then understand various different listening barriers and then remove them. Understand internal thought process. Again, our internal thought process greatly influence our ability to listen. Many of times, because of our internal thought process, even though I want to be an active listener, but many of times we tend to become a passive listener. Instead of listening, many of times we start hearing. So internal identifying, understanding internal thought process, how it influences our listening pattern is very, very critical. And that helps us to improve our listening capability or listening habits.
The age of 45, did I
Listening
finally
response system.
operating in my head? And that code had kept me away from people.
Some disturbance somewhere. Okay.
And then when I turned that code, this life became available to me.
Okay. Next is listening response system. How do we respond to various different factors, various different situation as a listener? At different scenario, how do we actually change our, or we should change our listening pattern or listening process, that we should learn. And finally, help others to listen to us. So far, I mean, active listening, again, if we look at mostly 90% of active listening program constitutes of the listening part, and last 10%, I would say, is depending on how, while I am speaking and assuming that my listener is not a skilled listener, he or she doesn't know active listening, or had not been trained as an active listener. In that case, I can tune my speaking style in such a way that active listening becomes automatically for my listener. So that is also, I mean, that is the last section of this. Then again, after active listening, as a leader, what I need to do, or what I need to learn and practice, very important area, emotional intelligence. If you look at the leaders, their emotional intelligence and emotional quotient is pretty high. Now, what is emotional intelligence? In single word, if I describe, it's a way how we react on various different situations, how our emotional outburst happens. I'll give a very simple example which I often give in various different classes also. Assuming you are driving on the road, now somebody else hit the backside of your car by, I mean, that person might be riding a bike, I mean, two-wheeler or four-wheeler, whatever it might be, hit from your back without any fault from your side. Now what do we do? What our automatic reaction? Definitely will be angry, we will be upset, we will come down, come out of the car most probably, and might be get into a verbal, or might be, even depending on our mental state or the type of emotional quotient we have, might get into even physical fight. Now, is it always true? No. Same person, same incident. I will give two scenarios very quickly. One is, my car, I mean, the scenario remains same, right? My car has got hit by someone else from the behind. I got out of the car and found that the driver, the person who is driving the other car, is a pretty well built, hefty guy, and I am nowhere near to him or that person. Will I still get into a fight or a really serious argument with this guy? No, I will not. Most likely 99% cases we will not. So if you all understand Hindi, then what we will do? Gussa pi jayenge. Now, on the contrary, if the other guy is a very thin little guy, I mean, poor guy kind of thing, in that case, he will come in a very aggressive manner, do all these things. So, why I am saying this is, we change our emotional outcome on different scenario. We have that ability inbuilt. Only thing is, many of times we are not aware and we don't know how to control it intentionally. So through emotional intelligence, working on emotional intelligence, what we do is we learn how to manage our emotion. It's not that we are, we are not having emotion at all. No, having emotion is natural. Definitely we'll have various emotions, positive, negative, all these things. The only thing is, we need to know, identify what type of emotion we are getting, what is the possible outcome of this emotion, and is it going to be, or will it hurt other person, or is it going to be good for me, good for others? Is it natural, is it acceptable or not? If it is not, in that case it is all about learning our emotion so that the outcome comes out as a positive way, positive note, right? Second thing of emotional intelligence is work on the limiting belief and replacing the negative limiting belief with an effective positive belief system. Very, very important. I mean, those who have undergone any course on NLP or anything, you might have heard about this terminology, limiting belief. So it's again very important in terms of developing our emotional intelligence. Other than that, we need to work on certain areas like self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills. Now, what does all these things means? I can't go into deep into all these things, but net generalize, if we do that, if we learn to be self-aware, if we know to regulate our emotions in a positive way, if we learn how to stay motivated by ourselves and also radiate the positive motivation to the people who are around us, have empathy, and having social skill. Now, social skill, only one thing I would say, many of times people feel that people with high social skill means they're always active in the social media. No, no. Social skill has nothing to do to be active in the social media. Social skill means whether as an individual I have an ability to strike a conversation with an unknown person or not. I'll give again a very quick example. Suppose you are traveling, you are waiting in the airport for boarding the flight. Now there is a person sitting next to you. that person is doesn't looks to be very busy, pretty casually sitting, might be casually reading newspaper or something. Now, if a person has high social skill, then that person should be able to say, hi, I am so and so, I am traveling this place, how about you, this, that, and strike a conversation. Now, how does it help? This helps to expand the network of that individual. Now, in today's scenario, if you have a better or bigger network, you will always be beneficial. It is not possible in all said and done, I mean, all real life, that I will have all sort of experience, good, bad, or ugly, in my short span of life. If I have a good network, in that case, how will it help? It will help me to ensure or to seek help basically from others when I don't have the solution, right? So that is a social skill. What next? Next is ability to have an effective conversation. Now again, what is effective conversation? Effective conversation is a proper communication, which is obviously a two-way communication, because communication has to be a two-way thing, right? It's not a one-way. I'm just saying something is not communicating. Now, whenever we're talking about the conversation, one more thing we need to remember, that the conversation or the communication must be real. What is real? Relevant, effective, affirming, and legitimate. Then only a conversation or a communication makes full sense. Next, as a communicator, I need to understand the audience before starting the conversation. Be prepared for a difficult conversation, especially in a business scenario. So that's very important. Be prepared for a difficult conversation, having a difficult conversation. I mean, be it in an organization, if you are a businessman, be it in a business with your client, in the organization, either with the client or even with your team members, right? Understand the price of the communication or conversation. And finally, be clear about the goal of the conversation or communication. What we are trying to achieve out of this communication or conversation. Uh, Next is, again, everybody knows a role of a leader is effectively managing the team. Managing a team means, I would say here, I would focus on managing a high performing team. See, if the team is not high performing, managing that team is comparatively easy. But when you are leading a high performing team, managing that team is comparatively much more difficult. It has its pros and cons though. So we need to learn, we need to practice, we need to know how to manage a high performing team, which means how to maintain the high employee engagement, how to maintain the employee relationship. Now, employee relationship means not only supervisor and the employee, but among the other employees or within the employees as well. There should not be major ego clash, fight, and all these things. Employee satisfaction, very important. Now, if we can do all these things and few more things, then automatically our employee retention will go up and the attrition will go down, because people will get kind of a close feeling, family feeling, good feel good factor about the team, working with that team or working with that organization. So that's again a very important factor for a leader. Once the organization grows, I personally have heard from a so-called leader, I don't consider him as a leader though, he said that, well, we have grown enough. Our organization name or the brand is a world-known brand. So I don't care if people are not happy, people are not satisfied. If someone is not satisfied, door is open. They can put their paper down and leave, resign and leave. We'll find better talent than those people. Now, that is sheer arrogance. I mean, you'll never earn respect, and forget about respect. You cannot run the organization like that, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with people. We are not dealing with robot, right? We should not hurt the sentiment, hurt the ego of the person, hurt the sentiment of the person. We need to respect people. That is the first and foremost thing. Respect the individual, respect people, right? That should be the core value, whatever the core value of the organization might be, but that should be the core value of any leader, that I must respect my people, respect the individual who are working for me. I must uh, work for them also, then only they will work for me or work for us. Other than all these things, now most of the successful leaders also demonstrate some of the key qualities, like they are proactive, being proactive, begin with the end in the mind, put things first, think win-win, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Then is synergize, and finally sharpening the saw. All these qualities, these qualities, if you follow Stephen Covey, these are the qualities, 7 qualities which Stephen Covey had suggested or has mentioned, right? In his book, the most successful leader or the successful people, something like that, which is very, very, very applicable, highly applicable to become a leader. So these are the broad, we can say, the leadership qualities. People should have leadership qualities. Now, what we need to do before we conclude my part, now since we have understood that at a high level what are the qualities leaders have, this, that, and all these things, now as an individual, all of us, we need to introspect, how many qualities do we have as an individual? What all qualities do I have? If I feel that I need to develop myself as a leader, or am I having already all these traits which we have discussed so far? If I have already all these things, then fine, fantastic, I am already a leader. So there is perhaps nothing much to do from my side. But if I don't have all these things, in that case, definitely I have a work to do. I need to do some self-development. One more thing is, one more statistics I would say. Broadly, in any organization, in any profession per se, there are 4 different categories of people or employees. One is non-professional. This constitutes about 40% of the total workforce. They don't have any specialized skill. They can be replaced practically without any effort. So as a result of all these things, they fall into the lowest salary segment or bracket and often gets fired when their salary reaches to a certain level. So what organization does? They remove those people because their salary have reached to a certain level, and replace those positions with comparatively junior people with a lower salary. Advantage, their operation cost goes down, and that since they don't have any specialized skill, organization don't bother. There is nothing happens. Productivity, or there is no impact basically. Second is professional. Again, that is a 40% of the total workforce. The difference between non-professional and professional is, professional have they have a specialized skill, but even though they have a specialized skill, there is always a downward pressure for salary but upward target. So every appraisal, every now and then, they are being asked, what new have you done this year or this time, right? So they have a high expertise but low visibility. Their expertise is high, but they don't know how to make them visible, right? Third is the expert, only 10%. Now here they get better recognition, better pay package, but there also they need to constantly upgrade their skills, because they are again asked, what new are you doing, what new have you done, kind of. So as a result of that, there is a limit. There is a limit of pushing all of us ourselves. So once we reach to certain level, in that case there is a possibility that these experts may slip into the professional zone. What is the best part is authority. Again, top 10%. What is the difference between expert and authority? is they have established themselves such a great way that everyone look upon them. They get the maximum salary most of the time. Many of times the 80% of the organization salary package is divided into top 10%, these 10% people. So you can imagine, I mean, their package is very high, salary package is very high. People look after them or look into them for anything and everything. They are the go-to person, go-to people, and they are the leader. So they cannot be replaced. I mean, it's very, very, very difficult to replace them. If someone of this position or this kind of person leaves the organization, many of times the whole organization or the department which he or she was leading, that whole thing collapses many of times. So what we need to do is we need to learn how to reach to the authority level, whichever level today we might be. For that, what we need to do is investment. Now, investment means not in mutual fund or not those kind of places, not directly monetary investment, not in the bank. Here, invest on ourselves, invest on self-development. Identify your position, identify where you need to reach tomorrow, and draw a roadmap, what all things you need to do. For each of these steps, we need to invest both time and money. Ideally, I would suggest that to reach to an authoritative position, it is good, or it will be good, if you take help of a mentor. Identify someone who is from your same industry, who has enormous experience, and who has grown to that place from the grassroots level, not in between. From the grassroots level, that person have grown to a certain level, to a leadership, really true leadership position. If that person mentors, in that case what happens, the good thing is they can guide us all the goods and bads and all these things, the way we should progress, proceed, right? And also need to do certain courses, I mean training, courses in that sense, training, leadership development course, leadership development training, technical training, skill, I mean the skill training, domain or industry related training, whatever it might be. So sharpening the saw, self-development, continuous development, that we need to do.